Hey guys, welcome back to Calico Cow Acres. I'm Mickayla, and today we are going to be doing an August garden tour. If you're new here, I'm in zone 7B, 8A. It just changed from 7B to 8A this past year. And just for a little bit of context, we moved here 2 years ago. This is our second growing season on this property, and 2 years ago, where I'm sitting right now was 5 foot tall grass and weeds. If you want to see 2023 or earlier 2024 garden tours, I have a whole playlist of just garden tours so you can watch them all and just see how our space has changed over time. In my opinion, it has gone from wild, grassy, weedy animal paddock to wild jungle of a garden in the best way. I film these garden tours so that hopefully I can provide you guys with some inspiration, maybe make you feel not so alone if things aren't going so hot in your garden, because I definitely have struggles as well. And I also make them as sort of a video diary for myself so I can come back and see how our garden has changed over the years in 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, 10 years from now. And I think that's going to be something really special to be able to look back on. So I appreciate you watching this. I hope you gained something positive from it, and let's get right into the tour. Okay, we are going to start up here in the wild west of the garden and kind of just make our way through. I don't have anything planted in this bed. This was previously potatoes, so we're going to skip over this. I need to get more in there, but it hasn't happened yet. Right here we have this really cool little gourd trellis that we made. And the ducks, whenever it rains, the ducks love coming to splash through here, and Ricky likes to lay under here too. This is a mixture of ornamental gourds and cuckoozy squash. And you can see, they just started flowering recently, so hopefully we'll get some actual gourds on here soon. But they seem to be happy. We need to weed whack up here, but that's okay. It's August, it's supposed to be a hot mess in here. On the other side of this, in this bed, we have some potatoes that we planted earlier, and then we need to get more straw on this. You can see some rogue potatoes popped around in here, and over there we've got a whole bunch more potatoes planted. We are rationing our straw right now because we don't have a working vehicle that can haul straw at the moment. Hopefully we will soon. For right now, we have to be careful with how much we use because we also use it for the birds' bedding. These potatoes are popping. We've got flowers on. A lot of them have already flowered, but we have some flowers on them still. And we're hoping that we get more potatoes out of these. Okay, we're still in the Wild West, which funny enough is actually the west side of the garden. We have corn up here that nothing really ever happened with it. We kind of just let it do its thing. I'm gonna give it to the birds whenever I get around to pulling it out. The heat and the drought in June stunted that really badly, but it was just a little patch, so it's okay. And you can kind of see that this is a lot of grass right here. The straw that we got in that last load was not second cut straw, so there were still some seeds in it. And I really want to try not to make that mistake again, because dealing with straw that sprouts is frustrating. I might as well just buy hay at that point because it's actually a lot more accessible to me, but I don't want to deal with those weeds. So second cut straw is the way to go. In addition to that, we had vine borer massacres again here with all of our squash and pumpkins. I was pretty hopeful this year that this was going to work out a little bit better, and it has worked out a little bit better than last year. It's not nearly as bad. So I think our process is improving, but the vine borers still did get to a lot of this. However, I was able to weed and replant some. So we have some squashes and pumpkins in here that are kind of just getting their grasp on life and starting to do well. And I've managed to keep the borers away from them for the most part. These ones down here are doing particularly well. And our nasturtiums are actually looking really good too. So our next area is again part of this Wild West area that I've been talking about. And it's mostly our melon patch that has spread into all of the places. I've just kind of let it do its thing to see how far it wants to crawl, and it's definitely doing that. It's crawling all over the hugelkultur bed. So it might look wild and crazy, but we've got a lot going on in here. We've actually started to get some melons that are edible out of here. The last couple of weeks we've gotten some melons out of the garden, and they are unmatched with flavor and sweetness. It's been such a fun experience to actually crack open a melon in the garden and just eat it with your hands, and you're just covered in melon juice, but it's so yummy. So it's definitely a really fun experience to have. I've been harvesting lemon balm like crazy and drying it. This will be the 4th batch, I believe, of lemon balm when I harvest this stuff. And I just keep cutting it back almost all the way, and it comes back with a vengeance every single time. And then you can also see, I'm gonna show you this one. I left this here to show you guys. We have been having some blossom end rot issues with our melons. Not all of them, but some of them. And so I need to address that, but I just wanted to show you what that looks like. Another herb I've been harvesting like crazy out of here is our oregano. I do the same thing as with the lemon balm. I just cut it all the way back and it comes back every time. The vines on these are so overwhelming that you can almost not see the melons, but I promise there are a ton in here. If you look closely, we've got little watermelons all over the place, cantaloupes, and even some honeydew. So the next bed down from that jungle of melons is, or was, the edamame bed. And I'm gonna try replanting this yet again, but the deer have not been kind this year, as I've mentioned in previous garden tours. We're gonna see if we can get a fall batch going. And with that, we've also got our sort of failed, sort of awesome volunteer bed that was supposed to be all green beans. Yesterday, I just got my motion censored sprinkler in the mail. We're gonna see if that works. I was trying to avoid that because I just know I'm gonna get sprinkled and it's gonna give me a heart attack. But you know what? If I get veggies out of it, maybe it's worth it. So we're gonna try that. That's my last ditch effort. Nothing else has worked and I don't have the money to put up a fence. So we're gonna replant, see if we can get fall beans and edamame, and I guess I'll let you guys know. This is supposed to be bean bed, however, is growing a lot of things and they're all volunteers from last year. So we've got some full-on marigold shrubs in here and that's really cool to see. I've just been kind of letting this one be wild and do its thing. We've got all sorts of tulsi in here, which is holy basil. And if you look closely, there are bees all over this. They love it and I can't possibly take that away from them. And honestly, it just smells amazing. Like I don't even mind having it in here. We've got other basils. I believe this is a blue spice basil, I think is what it's called. And then we do have some bean plants in here that are growing and they happen to be pole beans. I got bulk packages of Blue Lake bush beans and it seems that every few plants is a Blue Lake pole bean, which I find funny. And there are actually some beans on these ones. So maybe the pole beans are the way to go because apparently the deer aren't enjoying those. We have volunteer tomatillos in here too. But like I said, we'll replant this with more beans and see if we can't get them to take off with the assistance of a motion sensor sprinkler. We're gonna skip back up this way to this, again, Wild West weedy bed. Taylor just got back from a 2-week-long trip and I was kind of here doing all of the things on my own for a while. That really took a toll on me as far as being able to keep up with everything. The garden tasks are a little bit behind, but you know what? Everything is still thriving out here. Everything's still growing. And I've been pulling in lots of food regardless of all the weeds. If you look closely, we have volunteers in this bed too. We have marigolds, we have Thai basil, but for the most part, this bed is tomatillos, it's jalapenos, which I've harvested tons of jalapenos off of these plants at this point. They're kind of in a lull right now, but I've been harvesting tons of habaneros as well. We've also been harvesting tons of these little cow horn chili peppers. So that is most of this very upper portion of the garden. And you can see this is definitely the part that I weed the least. But next we're going to talk about this corn. I don't know how well it comes across on camera, but this is like 8 feet tall. Not all of them are that tall. Most of them are taller than me, which is really cool. This is glass gem corn. If you look closely, you can probably see the colors, hopefully, that comes across on camera. They're definitely really pretty, and they're actually pretty big cobs. I have quite large hands, and they're like 6 inches. I'd say most of them are at least 6 inches long, so I'd call this a success. This corn was grown from a cob that Taylor found earlier this spring in the ground when he was tilling up our last year's corn bed. And we decided to save the seeds off of it, plant them, and see what happened. And look what happened. They grew. And they grew way better than the other corn that we planted for the first time this year. So if you think about that, there might be a deeper lesson on saving seeds in that statement. Also, I just want to point out that Ricky loves to get in here underneath the corn and lay when it's hot outside. It gives him so much nice shade. So I think that's a bonus to having corn growing. Right down here from the corn we have lima beans. You can probably tell that we've got some flea beetles and other damage, but they're still growing. I'd like to save a bunch of seeds from this massive shrub of lima beans and plant a bigger patch of them next year. Lima beans are one of Taylor's favorite things to add to like pastas and just a nice little additive to meals. So it's something that I think is handy for us to have around. Now let's move over to our tomatoes, which I feel very excited to actually have a good report for you guys during this garden tour. Every garden tour I've done so far this year, I felt like I've been bummed about the tomatoes, but it seems that they're actually starting to grow now and they're finally starting to produce fruit, and it's so... Bees. I respect you, but respect my space. I was getting a little bit worried about them. So I know everything out here is green and they're hard to see, but they're actually starting to get tall and I can clip them to the trellises. They have green growth on them, they have flowers. It's not just these blighty leaves down here like they were before. And they're all doing that. They're all growing. They all have some flowers on them finally. We also have these marigolds. These are all African marigolds. I don't know what the yellow ones are called, but these are orange Hawaii. And this is my favorite thing in the evening. If you've listened to Mine and Sage's podcast at all, you know I've said this a million times. Those are the ones that I'm always talking about, that glow in the evening. They seriously look like they're on fire. They add so much beauty to the garden in the evening. During the day too, they're really pretty, but at dusk is when they glow, and it's so cool to see. So I'm gonna be saving seeds from these again and definitely trying to plant more of them next year. I didn't get to plant as many as I wanted this year. I think the issues we were having with them earlier this year were caused a lot by the weather patterns we were having with the drought and extra hot heat in June, and then a lot of water all at once and a lot of stuff going on for the tomatoes. And then I was also a bit concerned by July when I wasn't seeing any tomatoes. Based on our first year here, which was last year, our tomatoes came in really early and really strong last year, and they kind of petered out by mid-August. So come July and we hadn't had any tomatoes yet, and I was getting a little concerned. This year just seems to be a little bit different. Now that I have another season here under my belt, I know in the future not to expect it at a specific time. So yeah, I'm feeling better about the tomatoes, and I'm happy to report that we've been pulling them in slowly, and I'm thinking we're gonna get a lot more soon. Okay, so that's all of our tomatoes right here. They're still not perfect, but you know what? They're doing well. They're doing better than they were, and I'm happy with that. Moving down to this little jungle right here. This is one of our 24-foot long beds that previously had garlic in it. I've got a bunch of really bright yellow zinnias that I love. I think these are, I forget what these are called every time I try to say it. I think it's pink-eyed purple hull peas. Somebody tell me when to harvest these. I have no clue. I've never grown these before. They're weird looking and they're kind of cool, but they're very lush and I like that. They're kind of spreading onto these leeks that I need to harvest. We planted these in the early spring and they've been ready. We'll pick these as soon as we have a chance and get the greens in the freezer for broth. And the bases, the white part, we will end up chopping those up and freezing them for meals later on. The next thing we have in here is okra, and those are growing like crazy. The amount that this whole setup has changed in the last month or so is a wild transformation. All of this was succession sown after our garlic, so it's just starting to get its bearings. The whole rest of the bed was squash, all summer squashes and zucchinis. You can kind of see some baby patty pans in there if you look closely. And with squash comes the squash bug. I really need to get out here and pick those off. They're on all of our plants. Here's another one, for example. So the borers have gotten to some of those. I'm gonna do another succession planting of these. I have so many seeds because I know I need to just keep replanting them to get anything off of them. And some of them seem to be doing okay, so we'll just kind of keep an eye on which varieties are doing better and replant those next year. I know you can see all of this lovely stuff hanging from the trellis. We're gonna come back to this, but first we're gonna go over here and go back up to our peppers. I guess we can look at the trellis really quick. I have cucumbers growing down here that they're not doing amazing, but they actually do have flowers, they're growing, and they have some baby cukes on them, even though they look to be getting some blight. The one cucumber I had that was thriving all summer finally decided to die off, and you know what? That seems well deserved. It definitely earned that. It gave me a lot of cucumbers. We've got some zinnias in here, and then this is a whole bunch of self-sown morning glories. They're beautiful, but they are so invasive here. They keep taking over, even though they're really pretty. I'll probably never personally plant them again, but I'll probably also still have them in my garden forever. But you know what? They're pretty, but I'm not going to intentionally put them there. Okay, coming around the trellis to the peppers, we have a few plants right here that are doing really well. A lot of these are bells. We have some green bells, and then I have flavor burst yellow bells. I'm trying to let them get some color on them. And then that side of the bed is having some issues, and it honestly almost looks like they got sprayed with herbicide or something, and I don't spray anything, so I don't know what's happening here. Maybe it drifted, maybe it's something else, I don't know. None of these are doing super hot. Even our shishito is seeming to not be crazy happy anymore. It was at first. There's still some peppers on it though. These are definitely something I'm gonna grow every single season. Okay, well that bed's not doing amazing. This one is doing really well. We've got some bells on here. I just picked some big ones off of this plant earlier. And then I've got these gypsy bells, which are tiny bells, and I'm trying to let them get some color on them because I think having the variety would be nice to freeze for the year. These things are loaded. This one needs to get staked up a little bit better, but they're definitely loaded down with peppers and they're looking really good. We have some Fresno chilies down here, and then on that plant we have lunchbox peppers, which they're all over it. They're green though right now, so they're kind of hard to see. And then we have banana peppers. We've been pulling loads of banana peppers off of these plants. This one got planted a little bit later, so it's still kind of getting its bearings, but it's a Thai chili. And honestly, they have like this chocolatey color to them before they turn red, and they're really pretty. The sun decided to come back out. It's getting a little humid out here. That is the entire top portion of the garden, the upper half. We're gonna move down to the lower portion, and we're gonna start with our raised beds. I'm very excited to show you guys these ones this time because it feels like it's been a while since these actually had something growing in them in a garden tour. So we've got some zinnias, weeds, of course, some dahlias that I need to stake up. We've got parsley, some sunflowers, and then in the actual raised bed, we've got fall carrots that have come up really well, surprisingly, even though it's been so hot out. And then all around the edges, I don't know the exact variety. I will look it up and try and put it on the screen for you. These are cucumbers, but the vines only get 2 or 3 feet long, and they're either pickling or muncher cucumbers of some variety. I'm excited. They're thriving. They're doing really well, and I'm excited to see if we can get a whole bunch more cukes off of these. And then over here we have some sunflowers. These are mammoth sunflowers that I forgot I planted. We'll see how tall those get. They're probably gonna get way up there. Over on this side, we have the same situation. These carrots actually seem to be doing even better than the other ones. They have the exact same soil in them, same compost and everything, so I'm not sure why that is. They are down the hill a little bit, but they're in raised beds. Interesting thing to note. So these also have cukes planted all around the edges. And then up here I have dahlias again. We have some cilantro that's starting to come back up. And then we have this little potted plant with lemon thyme, and these are Chinese 5-color peppers or something like that. They're really pretty. We got this at the farmer's market on a very impulsive purchase because they were really pretty. And I'm not sad about it. We've been picking peppers off of that, and they do eventually turn red once they're ready to be picked. Then I just have, I just recently harvested some of these, but I have sage and a little lemon thyme plant up here. I just hacked these down quite a bit. They were very luscious a few days ago. I'm thinking it's time to go through the tunnel because I'm very excited about it, and I think you guys are going to be shocked at how much it's grown. My little intro water bottle stump here, you can see there's some vines growing. There's going to be a lot more very soon. So up this whole front part right here, this whole front trellis, this and over here is all loofah that's really starting to climb, and it's looking really happy. Here and here are melons I planted a little bit later that I need to start training them up the trellis a little bit more. They're doing really well. This is Moon and Stars watermelon and some sort of cantaloupe. I think it's probably Hales over there. And then we've got all sorts of melons on this trellis. This is a watermelon. There are some pretty big ones on here. I kind of did every other trellis with melons and cantaloupe, but there are, if you look closely, there are melons all over the place. Look at that. We got one right there, there, a little one right there. There's a couple. You can tell when they're ready because you walk through the trellis and it smells like cantaloupe, and that's really, it's a good smell. It smells amazing. I had a couple that I didn't realize were quite ready, and I could smell them, but I didn't know where they were because they were in all of the lusciousness of this trellis. And so the birds have gotten a couple of these, and I've also snacked on a few of these at this point, and they're really yummy. We are gonna set this one off to the side so I don't forget about it. And while we're backed up, let's just admire this awesome experience. Do you see all of these gourds? Is this not so freaking cool? Look at these, they're massive. These are dipper gourds, and I have no clue what I'm gonna do with all of them. Probably gonna be giving some of those away to friends because I don't need that many dippers. All of those gourds are from this one plant that's growing from the corner right here. And they're just abundant. And then we've got a whole bunch more melons in here. This is another Moon and Stars. You can see the patterns are on the leaves. And then also the melon has those speckles all over it too. They're really pretty. One of my biggest goals for this year, it was a simple one, but it was a big one, was to make sure this trellis got actually quite covered in vines this year, because it didn't really last year. I planted pole beans on it and they just didn't fill it out like I'd hoped. And so gourds and melons are definitely the go-to here. I'm doing that again next year. I really love how this turned out. And now we're back on the other side, and this entire side is the same as the other side. I've got squashes planted all throughout here. I just picked a couple big squashes off of these plants earlier. We are still having borer issues on these ones. You can see these ones are starting to die off. But like I said, I'm just gonna keep succession planting until I get as much squash as I want. And again, I have all of these pink-eyed purple hull peas just at the front here. The next beds down from the raised beds and the big trellis are a couple of tomato beds and some random peppers. These were our pepper beds at the beginning of the year. Then those got drowned out, and so only a couple peppers are left in here because we moved most of them. We thought this was a jalapeno, but it turns out these are poblanos, which is super cool. I was hoping to grow some poblanos. We have some super nacho jalapeno peppers. These have been really yummy. They're very good for making really big poppers. I have some squash that I planted in here. And then we have our tomatoes that were gifted to us from our feed dealers at Red Bell Ridge. These ones are actually doing really well. I've kind of been doing an unintentional experiment with these tomatoes. I have another bed on the other side. With this bed of them, I trellised them. I've kept up really well on trellising them, so there's not too much blight on these. You can see some because they were hanging on the ground for a bit, but they've mostly recovered and they're growing really well. I got them off the ground. We've got quite a few tomatoes on here that I need to bring inside and let them finish ripening before the bugs get to them. So I guess this is a picking video now too. Wasn't planning on picking things with you guys, but here we are. pick them all while we're at it. So that's that trellis. It's nice and tall and trellised up. And then over here, I haven't kept up on it as well. And you can see these ones are definitely suffering a little bit more. This one has snapped, unfortunately. But they still have some tomatoes on them. These ones have a little bit more damage. And they are growing and they need to be trellised. I will get out here and do that. But this has been kind of the neglected zone a little bit more. Look at this bulky pocket full of tomatoes. On the other side of this bed, there's our mystery peppers, which I think are Hungarian wax peppers. I think this is part of that seed mix-up from last year. We don't really love these, but these are probably growing the best out of all of our peppers. Of course, you know, that's how that works. So we're gonna learn to like them, right? This looks ridiculous. Look at this. We are finally getting some ahi cachuchas. These are Holler Homestead cachucha peppers from Saved Seed. I saved seed from peppers that they gave me. I'm really excited for these. I think they're just the most adorable little pepper. We have some catnip that I didn't plant there, but I'm not sad about it. The cats love it. And then some Buena Mulatas. I planted way too many of these last year, and so I only planted a couple plants of them this year, and only one of the plants survived. And then we have another little Thai chili that I actually need to come pick a bunch of these. I'm not going to do that right now because that'll take me a few minutes, but look at how cute and pretty they are. They're like the tiniest little peppers, but I love them. And it looks like the ducks have joined us for the last little bit of the garden. Hey guys, come here. Alright, they're on their way to go eat some more bugs. The last beds we have down here are the zinnias. I need to pick these so badly, but I wanted to leave them so that I could show them to you guys in this video. We need to do some better staking, but for the most part, these are just absolutely thriving. And these ones are as tall as I am, if not a little bit taller at this point. They're going crazy, and I love it. This bed got planted a little bit later than the other one. It's still really doing its thing, and I think these beds down here will forever be just little flower beds because look at how pretty this is. It's just such a good precursor to the garden. It makes the rest of the garden look that much more pretty, in my opinion. These are all just from blends of seeds. There's not any particular names for them, but there are some that I think are so pretty, and I'm definitely gonna save seeds from them. I'm up at the top of the garden on the outside of the fence because I wanted to show you one last thing before we end this video. There's actually a surprise up here that I wasn't expecting. But we have this wall of flowers that I planted again, and they finally started blooming. And Bill. Just look how pretty this is. This is kind of what our garden looks like from the road. It's mostly just more zinnias. And this whole thing should be filled out with that soon. Zinnias are just such a simple flower. They're so easy to grow, but they really make the space feel even more abundant. So I highly recommend planting these if you haven't yet, and try and get a variety of colors because look at that. Look at how pretty that is. It's just gorgeous. They really have such a huge pop of color. Okay, the last surprise. I came up here to show you the flowers, but I found this little kitten. Hey bud, are you about ready for dinner? Ricky spends most of his days sitting under these flowers and trying to catch the grasshoppers and butterflies and whatnot that are on them. And you know what? I can't blame him. I would sit with the flowers all day if I could too. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't checked out last month's garden tour yet, go ahead and check that out. I'm gonna put it here at the end. And with that being said, I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.